Ooh, what's good, family? So mash the like button, subscribe, and lick off the bell. So you man know who follow my channel that I've been following Anthony Joshua's technique extremely closely, and that Pulev fight was 10 out of 10 critical to the direction of Anthony Joshua's technical career, no doubt. Many people focus on results, but YB, he's still winning. Listen, I don't care about the winning. I care about self-actualization, no doubt. And what we do know is Anthony Joshua has got the same flaws he had 5 years ago, offensively talking. And in this video, we're going to look at some of them. Now, the first clip you'll see on your screen, and you've got to bear in mind, all of these clips I'm going to show you, yeah, took place in, I think it was the third round. Whatever round AJ put him down, yeah, it was that round. And all of these clips took place in that rally. When AJ was teeing off on Pulev, that's where all these clips came from. So bear that in mind. This isn't just, well, YB, you've taken a few bad moments over a 12-round fight. No, this was all in the same round. So he made all these mistakes in one round. And they're all that same type of mistakes. Offensive overreach is what I'd call it. Anyway, the first clip you'll see. AJ has just finished teeing off on Pulev. Pulev's backing up. AJ is just about to re-engage. And you see him load up a right hand and miss it. By miles, he misses it. Bear in mind, again, Pulev just been put down. Pulev's rocked. Pulev isn't throwing back as such. AJ is teeing off and he misses by miles. What's going on here? There's no finesse, there's no relaxed, there's no technique, there's no accuracy. It's all just brute force, which has always been AJ's go-to, brute force. And that's why I've said for a long time, that's why AJ doesn't really get the clean KOs. Because it's all, people can see it from miles off. When you're tense like that, you can see it coming. Or, worst yet, never mind see it coming, how about you just end up missing by miles? Do you understand? When you're that tight, and you're not offensively sharp, and you're not carrying the finesse, that's how it looks. People see it coming, which means you can't land clean. AJ seldomly landed clean on Pulev. Very few times. Most of the shots hit the guard, and then half of the shots just missed, blatantly missed, as you're going to see in this video. So this is again, this is one example. AJ's about to re-engage and just throws a right hand and misses by miles. I don't know what to say, I'm speechless. The reason this happened was Pulev was backing up, AJ was overzealous, and essentially what we know is Pulev wasn't backed up to the ropes. Now watch Alvarez. The reason Alvarez doesn't miss as much is because he puts his opponents back to the ropes and he follows a certain technique, if that makes sense. Cut the ring off. Classic boxing offensive technique. Cut the ring off, get them into a corner. The reason that's important is supposed to be, once they're backed up into the corner, they've got nowhere to go, which means your accuracy goes up. When your opponent's backed into a corner and can't move, the chance of you hitting them is a lot higher. When you start teeing off and loading up in the centre of the ring, naturally your opponent can move, which is what happened here. AJ was loading up as if his opponent was literally stuck in a corner. Now, I'm not saying, YB, are you saying that you can never throw a shot in the middle of a ring? No, but it's a type of shot you throw. If you're going to throw a right hand with your whole life in it, as AJ was here, why are you doing that in the centre of the ring? Give him some feints, back him up to the ropes, touch him a little bit, touch him to the body, or I don't know, do something touching wise, and then when you've got him somewhere, and that's why people do the double jab. And I hate saying this because when you watch AJ's earlier career, watch the Decam fight, AJ was doing this. He was double jabbing, or watch the Joseph Parker fight, he was double jabbing coming in, back them up to the ropes, or feint and jab, back them up to the ropes, and then get tee off. This stuff here isn't rocket science, but what's happened is AJ's offense has devolved. Why? He doesn't train it. And you man can be mad, you man can argue, it's a fact. If he was training it, these things wouldn't be happening. He wasn't doing this in 2017. His offense has never been this sloppy. And the worst thing is, it's not just about his offense being bad. Bad offense leads to bad defense. Because what do we know? After this very sequence here, AJ does the same again. He goes to load up a big right hand, and Pulev actually nicks a jab in, and you see AJ's head rattle back. Why? Because like I said, when you're tightening up, and when you're loading up so much, your opponent can see it. And also, it's a lot slower. When you flick a right hand, there's not much telling it. When you're loading up like AJ's loading up, there's loads of tell. Your opponents see it, and it's slow. And like you see there, Pulev got a jab off, clean jab. AJ's head rocks back. Now, as it happens in this fight, because Pulev's old and no good, AJ gets away with it. But there's no telling. What we know is, guess what happened? Someone a bit younger, a bit more offensively developed in Ruiz, exactly the same thing happened. When AJ was fighting Ruiz in the first fight, AJ loaded up, all tense, just hammering away, no finesse. And guess what? Ruiz got in the middle, got in between his shots. Oops, he got rocked. Yeah? Which is what I've been saying. These same mistakes, loading up too much in the centre of the ring, when your opponent isn't hurt. When you're just trading in the centre of the ring, yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be just trading. Watch Josh Taylor, watch Errol Spence here. When they're in the centre of the ring, they're not loading up. They're not going 10 out of 10. They're just touching. They're just working. That's what you're supposed to do. In the centre of the ring, you just work. Alright, let's just focus on landing, speed, accuracy, touching. When your opponent's hurt, when they're backing up, when they're conceding ground, when they're going back to the ropes, and you get them there, then you, if you really want to go to town, so be it. What you don't want to do is load up in the centre of the ring and end up getting caught. And in the Pulev fight, it wasn't so bad because Pulev was old. But again, it's not about getting away with things. It's about doing things correctly the first time. So that when you're in proper fights with better people, you don't make the same mistakes. Now, that's the first sequence. And actually, before I go, I want to mention about what the other aspects of loading up. Because I've just noticed that in that sequence, when AJ goes to load up for the right hand again and gets popped with a jab, look at his form, yeah? His form, his hands are by his chest at best, and he's literally just swinging his body around, as AJ's always done in his career. He's always been known as well, tell a lie, he was more finessed back in 2017, but these days, I don't know what to say. Either way, the facts are, you can see it on your screen. AJ's hands are by his chest. Why can't, if you're going to throw a right hand here, have your form correct. Have your chin down. AJ's got his chin in the air, his hands by his chest, and he's just loading up and swinging. Look at Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson would throw his, even when he threw the overhand right, there's no reason you can't have your hands in tight. Where you throw shots from, yes, there are some arguments that perhaps when you have your hands lower you can generate more power, but it's not worth the risk. If AJ had his hands up, rather than by his waist, even if he was about to load up, he would have maybe been able to react and parry. But AJ's chin was in the air. Awful positioning. And it's just waiting, it's an accident waiting to happen. He was lucky, who knows? If that jab had been from someone else who had more snap, you could be in trouble. That could have been I'm not being funny here, but that was the kind of punch that landed in the Ruiz fight. That's exactly what happened. AJ was in between shots. I wouldn't mind you. Sometimes when you're throwing combinations, inevitably you're going to get caught. But AJ was throwing singles. Do you understand? He got caught throwing a single. He wasn't in between shots here. He was literally just loading one up. So he was loading up so massive, Pulev was able to read it, get his jab off before AJ had even threw his right hand. It's just frustrating. This kind of athlete having this kind of offense, knowing how dangerous he could be. Anyway, moving on to the next one. So here's now the third clip, and you see this happened after Pulev was knocked down. So you know Pulev's hurt. He's just been knocked down. The ref is wiping off his gloves. Pulev saying he's okay. And AJ is just about to re-engage after a knockdown. And you see him tense up and load up a huge right hand that once again misses by miles. This is, where did they do that at? And people are going to be mad. YB, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I'm doing this because I care. Yeah, AJ needs to bring someone in who pays attention to detail. Yeah, you AJ super fans can be in denial. Oh, he's won loads of belts. He's won loads of belts because of Tony Sims, the remnants of Tony Sims, and his athletic ability, not because of Rob Mccrappen and his rubbish skills. Show me when you've seen Mike Tyson or all the greats. Show me Lennox Lewis just doing this kind of stuff. You don't see it. There's a reason for that. They had great trainers. It's a fact. And I'm sick of it now. Yeah? Bring someone in who pays attention to detail. Look at Carl Froch, the opposite of attention to detail. Look at AJ, the opposite of attention to detail. This is amateurish. Yeah? The man's just been knocked down after you've just knocked him down. The last thing you need to do right now in the centre of the ring is load up. Touch him a bit. Give him a step in and hook to the body like Ryan Garcia did. So I forgot his name, but whatever his last fight. Ryan Garcia, I think, fainted and dug to the body like Alvarez does. You know what I'm saying? Feint coming in. Touch him a bit. Get him, you know what I'm saying? Enjoy it. Enjoy your work. You don't need to be... This right here is anxiety 101. Offensive anxiety. AJ, in my opinion, isn't training his offense. Now, people will say, but YB, look, you don't see his training. Listen, I don't need to see his training to see how he's performing, yeah? If AJ was spending a whole load of time being offensive, or better yet, maybe he is training offense, yeah? But he's not training it with someone who has a keen eye for what needs to be happening. Because if they did, this stuff wouldn't exist, which is why you just don't see this stuff happening. You just don't see Alvarez doing things like this. You just don't see Mike Tyson or Lennox Lewis doing things like this. There's a reason for that. It's not just because of chance. Because we know for a fact AJ is at least, in my opinion, I think is better. I think athletically speaking, AJ is above all of them, man. But where he's not above is technically, which is due to his trainer. Facts. What's separating AJ from the Hall of Famers right now is his technique and his trainer. And as long as he carries on being stubborn and naive, he's going to be doing things like this. And now, again, he gets away with it on this occasion because he's in there with an old man who was never himself offensively acute. Pulev's useless on the inside, or useless as an offensive fighter. I've never seen him be offensive, truth be known. Unless you call a jab and an occasional right hand offensive, Pulev doesn't know anything about offensive fighting. But guess what? The first man who AJ ran into, who had a little bit of noddle about offense, he got exposed for these kind of flaws. Exactly the same flaws. Tensing up, loading up, low level offensive awareness. There's no excuse for this, I'm sorry, there's no excuse. You've just hurt the guy. There's no excuse for putting so much, for loading up so much you miss by miles. Explain it to me. It's bad enough, yeah, to load up and land. Loading up full stop's not good. And you can even see it. I've highlighted it here. You'll see AJ, yeah, load up. And he loads up so much, he ends up switching from orthodox to southpaw. He loads up so much weight, his back foot gets dragged forward, and he ends up in southpaw. Now, he gets out of trouble, luckily, because Pulev weren't throwing. So again, these people, oh, YB, it don't matter, he won by knockout. What you man ain't getting is, AJ's lucky because of the era we're living in. It's an era full of bums. So he will, but I don't even think it's a big deal. I don't think many fighters this era could capitalise on these kind of mistakes, truth be known. But I'm not looking for AJ to be the best of a bad bunch. I want him to self-actualise. I want to see him with the Hall of Fame level skills. That's what I want to enjoy watching. I want to enjoy watching this, one of the greatest athletes in the sport, get them Hall of Fame skills. And I want to see him implement them Hall of Fame skills on these bums in this era. And that's why these fights are going, I've told it before, This is why these fights are going 11 rounds. Do you understand that? These fights shouldn't be going 11 rounds. This should be a 3-2-3 round fight. The reason it's going 10-11, the reason it's going 12 rounds with Ruiz is because these skills aren't there. And that's the why. I'm not surprised, to be honest, now that AJ didn't want to be offensive with Ruiz, because knowing how many shots Ruiz puts together, knowing how Ruiz likes to counterpunch, I don't blame him with this kind of offense. To be honest, looking at this kind of offense, you're damn right he shouldn't have been trading with Ruiz, because he'd have been caught again. Truth be known, with this kind of offense, but that's the point. We shouldn't be accepting this kind of offense. AJ needs to get with someone who pays attention to detail. Rob Mccrappen sitting there saying, "Oh, stay behind the jab, stay behind the jab." That's not attention to detail. That's just avoiding the obvious as such. Oh, you know what? Rob Mccrappen's way of thinking is, well, I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, training an offensive fighter, so we'll just avoid the offense completely. Which is why when AJ gets into an offensive situation, it's what we see here, all over the place, at best. An accident waiting to happen. That's what this is. And if you think anything different, then you're delusional and you're a fangirl. Because I've never seen this before. You've just put the man down and you're loading up and you're missing. And the way he loads up as well. Again, I mentioned in the last clip, look at the body positioning. Before he goes into the shot, his hands are by his chest. He doesn't have no recoil, no form recoil. If I was training AJ, yeah, everything we're doing is from a tight guard. Everything. Elbows in, chin down, everything. There's no reason not to be. And what you notice as well, when you've got a tight guard, you're able to get short shots off without your opponent seeing. When you've got your hands by your waist and you're swinging, it's readable. When you've got your arms in tight, you can flick a lot easier. Your shots are a lot shorter. When you've got your hands by your chest, the habit is just to start swinging. It's all a bit loosey-goosey. It's a bit like when you look at fighters like Kovalev, for example. Look at how Kovalev fought, or even Andre Ward. These guys they fought with. In fact, Andre Ward's the best example. Andre Ward, everything was in tight. Now he wasn't a knockout artist, but still, everything was in tight. How about that? Even people like Golovkin, to be fair, in tight. It's a base to work from. You don't, especially being someone as explosive as AJ. You don't need to be, to knock someone out, you don't need to be loading up. You need to be hitting the target. How about that? What's the point loading up to only miss anyway? Focusing way too much on out and out brute force. And it comes down to the anxiety part as well. If you're feeling pressure about, I need to get the KO, then of course you're going to start loading up. What needs to happen is AJ needs to bring someone in who appreciates the offensive side of the sport, who can pay attention to detail, and can get AJ back in love with the offensive side of the sport. Because watching this isn't a man who's in love with what he's doing. This is the man who's like, I must get the KO, I need to get the KO. He's not in there just flowing. What's the big rush for? Why are you rushing, trying to get him out there in one shot? This is a man who's trying to get someone out there in one massive shot. What's the rush? It was round 3. What's the big song and dance? Go in there and just touch. Touch for a few rounds. Loosen him up. Where in that Pulev fight, where was the loosening up? Oops, there weren't no loosening up. It was all nothing, and then the whole damn volcano exploded. There was no building of pace. There was no breaking down. There was no momentum. To get them kind of big shots off you, you've got to get your timing down. You've got to get your accuracy down. You've got to start landing that kind of shot. In my opinion, you'd never throw that kind of shot. You never ever need to throw that much power. But even so, you're meant to start off a little and build. Start off at 40% power and add. Okay, I'm landing 40% power successfully. Let's put a little bit more snap on the end now. That's how it should be. Build up. You don't start with a full 100% and end up missing by miles because you ain't got your... It's a bit like golf. You don't whack it as hard as you can the first time. You have to build into a rhythm before you start level. You have to find your groove. In this Pulev fight, there was no finding the groove. And the worst thing is, Pulev is as stiff and as useless as they come. Which means that when you're in there with the Fury and Usyk, yeah, you got no chance. If you can't land this shot against Pulev, you ain't landing it against no one. That's the facts. Yeah? So what needs to happen now is AJ needs to reach out, needs to reach out to Shane McGuigan, needs to reach out to the YB, and let's get working. Bottom line, because what we know is, what we know for a fact is, oh YB, you ain't trained no one. Nor's Rob Mccrappen, to be fair. Me and Rob are on the same footing. Rob's shown he doesn't know nothing about the sport, and neither have I. So you might as well roll your dice. At least what I'm saying makes sense. Rob Mccrappen don't know what he's talking about. Clearly he don't. I'd be embarrassed. I would, watching that. I'd be embarrassed. Honestly, that's embarrassing. Is it not? It's got nothing to do with... Well, to an extent it's got to do with AJ. I blame AJ in as much as... Why is he accepting this? Why is he accepting the shoddiest trainer in the world? And for all you people who say, YB, you're lying, Rob Mccrappen's the best trainer ever. Well, we know that's not true. We know AJ doesn't believe that. Why? He brought in 2 new trainers. Oops. Yeah? Show me the last time Alvarez brought in 2 new trainers. You don't. Show me the last time Lennox Lewis brought in 2 new trainers when he was with Manny Stewart. Oops. He didn't. When people know they're self-actualizing, they ain't bringing in new trainers. New trainers for what? Look at Lawrence Okoli with Shane McGuigan. Why ain't he bringing in 2 new trainers? Because he knows the formula's working. AJ knows stuff ain't right. So I don't know what he's playing at. What's he messing around for? Again, look at Carl Froch. Mccrappen had 10 years with him. And Carl Froch was the opposite of skills. As such. Don't get me wrong, Carl Froch could have a tear up, but... when it comes to skills, no, Froch didn't have none. And this is the heavyweight game. You have to have skills at heavyweight, otherwise you get clipped. And even Carl Froch got put down by George Groves, which is my point. And Groves wasn't some massive, huge puncher. It's the big cycle. It's the big cycle again. It's all happening all over again. AJ, do you want to be known as the heavyweight Carl Froch? That's the question you've seriously got to be asking yourself now, because your current team aren't cutting it. That Fernando Alonso muppet is just as bad as a Mccrappen. Your whole team's useless. That's the facts of the situation here. Look at your tapes. You're doing the same things you was doing 8 years ago as amateur. 100%. Nothing's changed. If anything, the little bit that Tony Sims taught you has just devolved out of you now. And now you don't even know how to cut a ring off and back someone up to the ropes with a jab. Now it's just straight, alright, naff the jab, naff the feint, let me just swing a massive right hand and miss by miles. And cross into southpaw.